Something I've often emphasized on this channel is the importance of primary sources, the original documents which record the history we talk about. To encourage their utilization and exploration, I am starting a new feature on this channel. Inspired in part by the work of History Times' Voices of the Past, to support the main series of videos will now be segments in which I read out a relevant section of a primary, or perhaps secondary, source and briefly discuss its meaning, references, and sources. As our previous video covered Qiu Chuji and his journey to Chinggis Khan, here we will provide some of the letters between Chinggis and the Taoist master, as translated by Jackmeister in 1888, which accompany editions of the Qiu Chuji, the work which records Qiu Chuji's journey. First, the letter from Chinggis Khan summoning Qiu Chuji to him in 1219, delivered by Liu Chenglu. Heaven has abandoned China owing to its haughtiness and extravagant luxury, but I, living in the northern wilderness, have not inordinate passions. I hate luxury and exercise moderation. I have only one coat and one food. I eat the same food and am dressed in the same tatters as my humble herdsman. I consider the people my children, and take an interest in talented men as if they were my brothers. We always agree in our principles, and we are always united by mutual affection. At military exercises I am always in front, and in time of battle am never behind. In the space of 7 years I have succeeded in accomplishing a great work, and uniting the whole world in one empire. I have not myself distinguished qualities, but the government of the Jin dynasty is inconstant, and therefore heaven assists me to attain the throne. The Song dynasty to the south, the Huiho to the north, the Xia to the east, and the barbarians to the west, all together have acknowledged my supremacy. It seems to me that since the remote time of our Shan Yu, such a vast empire has not been seen. But as my calling is high, the obligations incumbent on me are also heavy, and I fear that in my ruling there may be something wanting. To cross a river we make boats and rudders. Likewise, we invite sage men, and choose out assistants for keeping the empire in good order. Since the time I came to the throne, I have always taken to heart the ruling of my people, but I cannot find worthy men to occupy the places of the 3 and the 9. With respect to these circumstances I inquired, and heard that thou, master, hast penetrated the truth, and that thou walkest in the path of right. Deeply learned and much experienced, thou hast much explored the laws. Thy sanctity is become manifest. Thou hast conserved the rigorous rules of the ancient sages. Thou art endowed with the eminent tales of celebrated men. For a long time thou hast lived in the caverns of the rocks and hast retired from the world. But to thee the people who have acquired sanctity repair, like clouds on the path of the immortals, in innumerable multitudes. I knew that after the war thou hadst continued to live in Shandong, at the same place, and I was always thinking of thee. I know the stories of the returning from the River Wai in the same cart, and of the invitations in the reed hut 3 times repeated. But what shall I do? We are separated by mountains and plains of great extent, and I cannot meet thee. I can only descend from the throne and stand by the side. I have fasted and washed. I have ordered my adjutant, Liu Chenglu, to prepare an escort and a cart for thee. Do not be afraid of the 1,000 li. I implore thee to move thy sainted steps. Do not think of the extent of the sandy desert. Commiserate the people in the present situation of affairs, or have pity upon me, and communicate to me the means of preserving life. I shall serve thee myself. I hope that at least thou wilt leave me a trifle of thy wisdom. Say only one word to me, and I shall be happy. In this letter I have briefly expressed my thoughts, and hope that thou wilt understand them. I hope also that thou, having penetrated the principles of the great Tao, sympathist with all that is right, and wilt not resist the wishes of the people. Given on May 15th, 1219. and in reply, Qiu Chuji's response, written after he had reached Yen with Liu Chenglu in 1220. Qiu Chuji, from Shi Ha-hin, devoted to the Tao, received lately from afar the most high decree. I must observe that all the people near the seashore are without talent. I confess that in worldly matters I am dull, and have not succeeded in investigating the Tao, although I tried hard in every possible way. I have grown old, and am not yet dead. My repute has spread over all kingdoms. But as to my sanctity, I am not better than ordinary people, and when I look inwards, I am deeply ashamed of myself. Who knows my hidden thoughts? Before this, I have had several invitations from the Jin and the Song dynasty, and have not gone. But now, at the first call of the Dragon Court, I am ready. Why? I have heard that the Emperor has been gifted by heaven with such valor and wisdom as has never been seen in ancient times or in our own days. Majestic splendor is accompanied by justice. The Chinese people, as well as the barbarians, have acknowledged the Emperor's supremacy. At first I was undecided whether I would hide myself in the mountains or flee into the sea, but I dared not oppose the order. I decided to brave frost and snow in order to be once presented to the Emperor. I heard at first that your Majesty's chariot was not farther than north of Huanzhou and Fuzhou, but after arriving at Yen, I was informed that it had moved far away. It was not known how many thousand li. Storm and dust never cease obscuring the heavens. I am old and infirm, and fear that I shall be unable to endure the pains of such a long journey, and that perhaps I cannot reach your Majesty. And even should I reach, I would not be good for anything. Public affairs and affairs of war are not within my capacity. The doctrine of the Tao teaches to restrain the passions, but that is a very difficult task. Considering these reasons, I conferred with Liu Chenglu, and asked him that I might wait in Yen or in Tihing the return of your Majesty. But he would not agree to that, and thus I myself undertook to lay my case before the Emperor. I am anxious to satisfy the desire of your Majesty, and to brave frost and snow, wherefore I solicit the decision. We were four who at the same time became ordained monks. 3 have attained sanctity. Only I have undeservedly the repute of a sainted man. My appearance is parched, my body is weak, I am waiting for your Majesty's order. Written in April 1220. We might at first be tempted to say, wow, Chinggis Khan was quite eloquent, but we should use caution. It's impossible to know how much of the first letter actually reflects the words of Chinggis Khan. Firstly, Chinggis was almost certainly illiterate. The Mongols had no writing system until the early 13th century, when Chinggis adopted the Uyghur script to write the Mongolian language. Now, Chinggis could possibly have tried to learn to read and write in the Uyghur script after that point, but learning to read while in your 50s is incredibly difficult. Further, these letters were written in Chinese, and we don't know if Chinggis knew any words of that language, let alone ever gained the skill to write in it. Our likely candidate for the writer is the Khitan Qiu Chuji, who entered Chinggis' service the year before, was highly educated and fluent in Chinese, and we know he was responsible for writing later letters from Chinggis to Qiu Chuji, and it is often suggested that he drafted this one as well. While some historians have said that these letters do not reflect the words of Chinggis, I am not so sure. It is possible that Chinggis dictated at least the opening of this message to Qiu Chuji, who then flowered it up to impress Qiu Chuji and incorporate references to Chinese traditions and knowledge. Of course, it is just as likely that Chinggis asked Qiu Chuji to write him a letter and left it to him to make it up. There is, though, one letter from late 1223 which translator Arthur Whaley suggests may reflect directly Chinggis' words, and perhaps indicate he spoke some basic Chinese. You left me and set out on your travels in the spring and were still on the road during the great heats of the summer. I hope you suffered no inconvenience and were well supplied with post horses. I hope that you were always provided with plenty to eat and drink and were never stinted. I hope the officials at Suan Te and elsewhere treated you properly. Hope that the common people came to hear you. Are you well and in good spirits? Here, I am always thinking about you. O holy immortal, I have never forgotten you. Do not forget me. The reason why Whaley suggested this is that the Chinese is so simple, as indicated by the repetition and simple sentence structure as per the translation. It is difficult to imagine one of Chinggis' educated advisors writing it. Instead, Whaley suggests, Chinggis knew some basic Chinese, not enough to be conversant, but enough to dictate a simple letter, have it written down, and sent. It is certainly possible, as Chinggis would have had Chinese speakers in his entourage for nearly 20 years by that point. Certainly enough time to learn some basic sentences, but the truth of such a matter must, however, remain in the realm of suggestion. If you found this small excerpt interesting, and would like me to do more in future, please let me know in the comments. There is no shortage of pieces I would love to share, and I hope this can be a useful tool to go alongside our main videos.